And here, as an addendum, you see I'm actually going to add the next piece to it. So if I go to here, you can see that in this case, I only needed to move this lower edge slightly up because the lower part here of my handle is actually flat. So this edge just needed to be inside the material thickness again. And then I can do basically the same like I did with the dial. You see, for example, add middle dial, and maybe actually going to add this one to there. And you will in a second see why I want add top dial, add middle dial, and then core out dials, because I will actually simplify one job a little bit. Top dial, core out dials. Okay, so because you see, the more Boolean modifiers you add, the more tasks the software has to do, and the slower it can get. The beauty of parametric is it's all dynamic. The downside is it can get a little bit slow. So I'm going to help myself a little bit. So for example, here I do the same, Shift D, P, and then where is my Shift D, P? Where did it go to? Oh, I see. There it is. So let's delete those. There. Okay, so the same like before. I'm going to extrude and add a surface. And then I have to shrink this. So I'm going to create an offset surface. And you see the same value I used before is still baked in. So I can simply apply, or not apply, execute the solidify command. Move this one down, and then here E, extrude, move it along the z-axis, scale it, fill it, make sure by selecting all faces and Control N that all the normals are pointing to the outside. I'm going to move this one to 7. And now what I would like to do is simply, I can make it a little bit easier for Blender by simply joining those two objects together. And the main reason is by joining them together, this Boolean command that cuts out the shells should actually do it once, and in case my theory is right, is performing this cut task at once. There. So instead of cutting and then cutting again it's just the modifier stack, like mirror, smoothing, offsetting, cutting the section out, adding the top dial, adding the middle dial, and then, for example, cutting the piece out. I just skipped one step. Blender always has to evaluate by simply joining those two objects together. Okay, let's go back to here. And you also see that actually this button has kind of like those small geometry pieces added on top. Here, those buttons, or that button has those pieces cut out. So just keep that in mind, that even the geometry output of this modifier stack. So I have, for example, here those pieces cut out, difference. And here I have those blue pieces added to the surface with a Boolean union. So, and then this mesh result is then being passed to here and added or welded onto the handle part. So yeah, I mean, you can see that going into edit mode and then leaving edit mode to go back into object mode is not really extremely slow. So while of course the Boolean modifiers start to really slow down the application because you do a lot of mesh calculation, it's not really that it completely slows it down. Of course, if you go into edit mode and start mesh modeling, that will become at one point maybe more stop and go. And to speed something up, for example, I have those objects here and I'm really working with those. So to speed up Blender, I'm going to turn those commands off by simply clicking on the eye. And this actually means that Blender does not evaluate those Boolean commands. So I think now if I go in here and, for example, go into edit mode, I think this should be a tick faster. Yeah, not really. So there are probably a lot of other commands that are running in the background also with Blender, for example, working on this part. So if, for example, I turn those off, let's see how this works now. There you see now this is, for example, a lot faster. So again, so you saw how actually turning those on and off can actually slow down or accelerate your screen refresh. So in general, of course, all those mesh designs, etc., should be done before you start working on the Boolean commands. And in case you still then have to go back and modify certain mesh parts and the screen refresh rate is really slow, simply take your objects where you have Boolean modifiers and for the moment simply click on the eyes, which turns them off. And then later you can, of course, turn them back on. So for example, here my other objects, they don't really work correctly right now. So I just reactivate the Boolean commands. And then we are back to business. Okay, that was it.